In a bustling city, an alien woman is ridiculed for her small size, dismissed as weak and unimportant. But when a human bus driver, Sam, sees her and looks beyond her appearance, something changes. After a near accident, the woman's hidden power is unleashed, stunning everyone on the bus. With every inch of her being fighting to control the immense strength within, she realizes that the world has misunderstood her. But Sam doesn't judge. He sees her for who she truly is, and in that moment, she knows it's time to stop hiding. Will she embrace her power or retreat again? Watch the journey unfold. Hey, yes. If you love thrilling sci-fi stories with a twist, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and comment below with your thoughts. Let's dive into. The sun hung low in the sky as the streets bustled with people on their way home. It was a normal evening in the busy city, where life moved quickly, and no one had time to stop and notice the small details. Among the crowd, an alien woman stood quietly at a bus stop. Her skin was a pale shade of green, and her eyes shimmered like distant stars. To the untrained eye, she looked like an alien, a strange being in a human world. However, there was something different about her. She wasn't as tall as most aliens, not even as tall as the average human. She stood there alone, her small frame almost blending in with the crowd. Passers-by didn't give her a second glance. They were too busy with their own lives, too caught up in their own thoughts to care about the woman who appeared so out of place. A group of teenagers walked past her, whispering and laughing. One of them pointed at her, nudging his friends. "Look at that alien," he said, snickering. "Is she even tall enough to reach the top shelf? Bet she can't even lift a heavy box. What's she doing here?" The others laughed along, not understanding the weight of their words. But the alien woman heard every single one of them. She didn't flinch, didn't react. She simply stood there, eyes forward, pretending not to notice. Deep down, though, she could feel the sting of their ridicule. She had gotten used to it over the years, being dismissed for something as trivial as her size. As people continued to ignore her, a bus pulled up at the stop. The usual rush of bodies flooded forward, all eager to get inside and find a seat. The alien woman was pushed aside, unnoticed once again. Her small frame made her an easy target for the crowd. No one cared to give her a chance. They were too busy thinking about their own day, their own worries. To them, she was just another alien, probably harmless, probably weak, and certainly not worth their time. But one person did notice her. A bus driver, Sam, leaned out the window, his eyes locking with hers. He saw her standing alone, separated from the crowd. His gaze softened and he smiled. There was something about her presence that drew him in, something beyond her physical appearance. Unlike the others, he wasn't judging her for her size. He didn't care that she was shorter than most of her kind. What mattered to him was that she was a person who deserved respect and dignity, no matter what anyone else thought. As the bus doors opened, the alien woman hesitated. She was used to being overlooked, used to being the last person anyone would choose. But when she saw Sam's welcoming smile, something inside her stirred. She stepped forward, her heart beating a little faster. She didn't expect to be treated like anyone else, but here was a man who didn't dismiss her. Here was someone who saw beyond her size, beyond her alien appearance. Little did they both know, this moment would change everything. Sam, the human bus driver, had no idea what kind of strength he was about to witness. And the alien woman had no idea that, for the first time, someone would see her for who she truly was. Not just an alien, not just someone small, but someone powerful. As the doors of the bus closed behind her, the alien woman found a seat near the back. She kept her head down, avoiding the curious stares of the other passengers. They didn't look at her with the same ridicule that she had faced outside, but there was still a sense of unease in the air. Whispers rippled through the bus, and she could feel the weight of their eyes on her. She had grown used to being an outsider, someone different from the rest. But today, something felt different. The bus lurched forward, its engine humming as it began its journey through the crowded streets. The alien woman tried to settle herself, focusing on the sound of the wheels rolling over the pavement, the gentle vibration beneath her. She wanted to blend in, to disappear, to become just another passenger on this crowded, noisy bus. But she couldn't escape the thoughts swirling in her mind. The humiliation she had felt earlier still stung, and the looks of judgment weighed heavily on her heart. Then she felt it. A strange sensation deep inside her, something she hadn't experienced before. It was as if a switch had been flipped, a fire starting to burn within her. Her muscles tightened, her body reacting instinctively, as if some dormant force was waking up. She tried to push it away, but it only grew stronger. Her hands gripped the armrests, her knuckles turning white as the sensation intensified. The bus jolted suddenly as it hit a pothole, throwing everyone off balance. Instinctively, she reached for the nearest support, her fingers brushing the bus railing. In an instant, the metal bent under the force of her touch, groaning as if it couldn't handle the sudden pressure. A shocked gasp escaped from one of the passengers sitting nearby. Their eyes widened, mouths opening in disbelief. The alien woman quickly pulled her hand back, trying to hide the trembling in her fingers. The passengers around her stared, some in fear, others in confusion. Was she human? Was she really an alien? What kind of creature could bend metal with just a touch? Her heart raced. She had always been told to keep her strength hidden, to remain unnoticed. Her kind had always been judged for their power, dismissed as dangerous or unpredictable. But this was different. She hadn't meant to show her strength, but it had come out of her without warning. She wasn't sure if it was the stress, the emotions, or something else, but she couldn't deny what had just happened. The energy inside her was real, and it was far stronger than anything she had ever imagined. The bus driver, Sam, had been watching from his rearview mirror. He saw the moment the metal bent. He saw the alien woman's eyes flash with something deeper than fear or panic, something raw, something powerful. For the first time, he didn't see an alien woman who was too short, too different, too weak. He saw someone who was holding back, someone who was struggling to control something far beyond what the world had ever seen. Their eyes met in the mirror, and for just a second the world seemed to stand still. The alien woman's gaze softened, as if silently pleading for understanding, for someone to see her, not as a freak, not as an outsider, but as a being with her own strength, her own power. And Sam, who had no idea what he was truly witnessing, felt a strange sense of respect for her. He didn't know what it was about her, whether it was her quiet strength or the mystery surrounding her, but something told him that this wasn't the end. The bus continued its journey, the hum of the engine filling the air, but the tension inside the vehicle was palpable. No one spoke. No one moved. Everyone seemed to be waiting for something that had only just begun. The bus continued its journey through the bustling streets, but for the alien woman, time seemed to stretch in slow motion. Her mind raced with a million thoughts, each one more confusing than the last. The strange force within her, the one she had always kept tightly controlled, was no longer just a whisper in the back of her mind. It was alive, vibrant, and threatening to break free. She couldn't understand why it had awakened now, why it had chosen this moment, this bus ride, to make itself known. But one thing was clear. Her strength was no longer something she could hide. She felt the vibrations of the bus under her feet, but they didn't comfort her as they once did. Instead, they seemed to amplify the growing energy inside her. Her fingers twitched, the metal railing she had touched earlier still fresh in her mind. The way it had bent so easily under her hand, it was as if she could feel the very structure of the bus itself now, almost as if she could make it bend to her will. The thought frightened her. She didn't want to hurt anyone, didn't want to be the cause of panic. But as the bus reached another intersection, something strange happened. A car, speeding recklessly through the intersection, swerved out of control. It crashed through a street sign and headed straight toward the bus. The passengers screamed, some of them diving for cover, others frozen in terror. The alien woman's heart skipped a beat. She could feel the danger. It was too close. The car was coming too fast. Without thinking, her hand shot out instinctively, as if her body was reacting before her mind could catch up. The car, which had been seconds away from crashing into the bus, suddenly froze mid-air. It hovered there, suspended, as if time itself had stopped. The sound of screeching tires and the chaos of the collision faded into silence. The passengers were too stunned to speak, too shocked to move. Her breath quickened as the energy inside her surged once again. She could feel the power of her action, the force she was controlling. She wasn't sure how long she could hold it. The car felt heavy, as if it weighed more than it should, but she refused to let it fall. It was like holding a massive weight in her mind, and she was struggling to maintain control. Sam, the bus driver, had watched the entire thing unfold in the rearview mirror. His hands gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles turning white. His eyes were wide with disbelief. What kind of woman was this? What kind of power did she have? He had seen many things in his life, but nothing like this. Nothing had ever made him feel the way he did in this moment, both terrified and awestruck, as if the rules of the world had just been rewritten right in front of him. For what felt like an eternity, the car remained suspended in the air, and the only sound that filled the bus was the alien woman's shallow breathing. She could feel the strength draining from her, the weight of the car starting to take its toll. But she refused to let go, not now. Not when she had already shown her power. Finally, with a deep exhale, she released her grip. The car gently lowered to the ground, its wheels touching the pavement with a soft thud. The bus fell silent. The passengers sat frozen in their seats, eyes wide with fear and disbelief. The alien woman looked around the bus, her heart racing in her chest. She had just shown them her strength, but she had also revealed something far more dangerous, the truth of who she really was, and for the first time in her life, she realized that her power was not something to be feared. It was something to be understood, something that had always been a part of her. Something she could no longer hide. The bus was eerily quiet, as if the world outside had been suspended in time. The alien woman's heart still raced, each beat a reminder of what had just happened. She could feel the energy inside her, pulsing like a storm that hadn't quite passed. She had stopped the car, but the weight of that power, her power, was settling in, and she didn't know how to control it. It was as if her very being was too much for the world around her to handle. She looked around the bus, her gaze meeting the eyes of the passengers. Some were still frozen in fear, others whispered in hushed voices. No one knew what to say, what to think. They had just witnessed something that defied all logic, and she could see the mix of confusion and awe in their eyes. But there was one face that stood out to her. Sam. He was sitting at the wheel, still gripping the steering wheel, his face pale but calm. His eyes weren't filled with fear like the others. Instead, there was something else in them, something she couldn't quite place. Curiosity, perhaps, or maybe understanding. For the first time since she boarded the bus, she felt a small flicker of hope. This man, this human, hadn't recoiled from her. He hadn't dismissed her or treated her like the others. He had seen her strength, and instead of fearing it, he had simply watched. As the bus continued its journey, the alien woman shifted in her seat, her mind racing. She tried to steady her breathing, but the energy within her was still so raw. She had always been taught to control it, to hide it away from the world. Her kind, her species, had always been warned about the dangers of their power. The fear of losing control, of causing harm, was something she had grown up with. But now, it was impossible to ignore. It was as if her power had been waiting for this moment, waiting for her to finally embrace it. And yet she wasn't sure if she was ready. She had spent so long suppressing it, so long hiding it, that the idea of letting it fully loose terrified her. What would happen if she lost control? What if she hurt someone? Her hands trembled as she clenched them into fists, the metal of the bus railing creaking under the pressure. She forced herself to relax, taking slow, steady breaths. The power was still there, but she couldn't let it consume her. Not yet, Sam's voice broke the silence. "Are you okay?" he asked, his tone soft but steady. She looked up, meeting his gaze in the rearview mirror. His eyes were kind, without judgment. There was no fear in them. Just curiosity and something else she couldn't place. "I'm not sure," she whispered. He nodded slowly as if he understood. "It's all right. You're not alone." The words hung in the air, and for a moment, the alien woman felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Something she thought she would never feel again. Hope. She looked out the window, watching the city pass by. The buildings, the people, everything seemed so distant, so foreign. But for the first time, she didn't feel completely out of place. Maybe, just maybe, she had found someone who could see her, not for her size, not for her alien appearance, but for who she truly was. And that, more than anything, gave her a sense of peace she hadn't known she was searching for. The bus slowed to a stop at the next intersection, the hum of the engine fading as the vehicle came to a halt. The passengers sat in a heavy silence, each one still grappling with what they had just witnessed. The air felt thick, charged with the unspoken realization that something extraordinary had happened. The alien woman remained seated, her eyes fixed on the floor, her mind swirling. It was hard to shake the feeling that she had crossed a line, that the power she had unleashed could not be taken back. She had bent metal with a simple touch, halted a speeding car mid-air, and in doing so, she had revealed herself in ways she wasn't sure she was ready for. The strength that had always lived inside her had burst forth without warning, and now she was left to wonder, what did this mean for her future? Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of the bus doors opening. The familiar clattering of footsteps filled the air as a few passengers exited, still casting nervous glances at her. She could feel their eyes on her, even as they hurried off the bus. It wasn't that she blamed them. They had every right to be scared. What she had shown them was beyond their understanding, but it was hard not to feel the sting of their fear. It wasn't the first time she had been judged for something she couldn't control. Sam, still at the wheel, glanced in the rearview mirror again, his expression unreadable. For a moment, the alien woman wondered if he was just as afraid as the others, if he was thinking about how to keep his distance from her, the stranger who could break the laws of nature with a flick of her wrist. But then his voice broke through the silence once again. "You're not alone," he said softly, his words steady, grounded. She looked up, surprised. Sam's gaze was calm, understanding. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't running away. His eyes were filled with something she hadn't expected, something like trust. It was an unexpected comfort, one she hadn't felt in years. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely a breath. She hadn't meant to say it, hadn't meant to speak the words that had been sitting on the edge of her tongue for so long. But they escaped before she could stop them. Sam's eyes softened, and he gave a small nod. "We all have our strengths. Doesn't matter what size you are." For a moment, the alien woman didn't know how to respond. The kindness in his words was so simple, so genuine, that it made her heart ache. For so long, she had been taught to hide, to shrink, to be as small as possible so she wouldn't draw attention to herself. And yet, here was someone, a human, telling her that her strength didn't matter in the way she had always been led to believe. It wasn't about size or shape or appearance. It was about what was inside, the power, the spirit, the will to act when the world needed it most. The bus jolted as it started moving again, but the alien woman felt lighter somehow. She wasn't sure why, but the tension that had been coiled tightly in her chest had loosened. She still had the power, still felt the energy inside her, but for the first time, she wasn't afraid of it. She didn't have to hide it. She didn't have to be ashamed of it. As the city passed by, she looked out the window, seeing the world in a new light. Maybe it was possible to live in it without hiding, without fear. Maybe it was possible to be seen for who she truly was, not just what others thought she should be. And with Sam, the human bus driver, by her side, maybe she wasn't so alone after all. The journey was far from over. But for the first time in a long while, the alien woman felt like she could take the next step without fear. It was a small step, but it was enough to make her believe in something greater, in herself. The bus rattled along, the hum of the engine filling the air as the city's skyline slowly shifted into quieter streets. The alien woman glanced out the window, her mind still racing, her body tense from the energy that had surged through her. She had always felt out of place, but tonight, for the first time, she felt something different, something that made her hesitate to retreat back into the shadows. Her eyes kept drifting toward Sam, who was focused on the road ahead. His presence was a strange comfort to her, something she hadn't expected. There was no fear in him, no hesitation. He had witnessed her power, and rather than recoiling, he had accepted it. His words from earlier kept echoing in her mind. "You're not alone," It was the first time anyone had ever looked at her with kindness, without fear. For years, she had been taught to hide her true nature, to blend in, to be smaller than she was, to be less than what she was capable of. But Sam had seen through all of that, and in that brief moment of connection, something shifted in her. Maybe it was time to stop hiding, to stop pretending to be weak, just because others couldn't understand her strength. Her gaze lingered on the bus driver's reflection in the rearview mirror, wondering if he understood the full extent of what she was. He had seen her power. He knew what she was capable of, even if she hadn't fully embraced it yet. As if sensing her thoughts, Sam's voice broke through the silence again, steady and reassuring. "I know it's not easy carrying something like that." He wasn't asking. He was stating it as a truth. "But I can see it in you. You're more than you think." The alien woman froze, her heart skipping a beat. She hadn't expected him to say that. She hadn't expected anyone to acknowledge the struggle she had hidden inside for so long. For the first time, she didn't feel like she had to apologize for what she was. Sam wasn't just seeing her for the alien she appeared to be. He was seeing her for everything she had kept buried beneath the surface. The strength, the power, the potential. "I don't know how to control it," she confessed quietly, her voice barely audible. Sam's eyes softened and he nodded. "You don't have to control it all at once. Just take it one step at a time. You have a power that most can't even comprehend, but that doesn't mean it has to control you." His words landed with a weight that felt both heavy and freeing. He wasn't telling her to suppress herself anymore. He wasn't trying to push her to be something she wasn't. He was telling her to trust herself, to embrace the very thing she had feared her entire life. The alien woman looked out the window once more, this time with a different sense of purpose. Sam had given her a gift, something she hadn't realized she needed, a reminder that she didn't have to be afraid of her own power. And with that thought, something inside her started to shift, just a little. Maybe, for the first time in her life, she didn't have to hide anymore. As the bus rolled through the quieter streets, the city's noise slowly faded into the background, and the alien woman's thoughts began to settle. She had always been a stranger in this world, but tonight something had changed. Sam's words still echoed in her mind, offering comfort and understanding that she hadn't known she needed. The journey had taken an unexpected turn. She had revealed her strength, her true power, to the people around her. But more importantly, she had revealed it to herself. For so long, she had been afraid of what others might think, terrified of her own abilities. She had been told to suppress them, to hide her true nature, to conform to the world's expectations of what she should be. But tonight, with Sam's quiet support, she realized she didn't have to shrink anymore. She didn't have to be smaller than she was. The bus began to slow and the streets grew darker, the city lights casting long shadows across the pavement. The alien woman knew the moment was coming, the moment she would have to face herself fully, without any more lies, without any more pretending. Sam had seen her for who she was, and for the first time, someone wasn't afraid. The bus came to a stop in front of a quiet alleyway, the headlights illuminating the night. Sam turned off the engine and glanced at her in the mirror. His gaze was steady, no longer filled with questions or fear, but with a calm recognition. "This is where I get off," he said quietly, his voice steady as he unbuckled his seatbelt. The alien woman hesitated, unsure of what to say. She didn't know why she felt like the journey was over, but it felt like it was time for something new. Sam stood up, his hand reaching for the door handle, but before he left, he turned to her one last time. "You know, you don't have to face everything alone," he said with a small smile. "You've got more strength than you realize. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." She watched him as he stepped off the bus, his figure blending into the night. His words lingered in the air, and she realized something. She didn't have to be afraid anymore. For the first time, she wasn't alone. Sam had given her more than just words. He had given her a new perspective on her own power. As the bus doors closed, the alien woman took a deep breath. The weight of her strength no longer felt like a burden. It felt like a part of her, something she could control, something that didn't define her but instead empowered her. She didn't have to be afraid of it. And maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to hide it any longer. For the first time in her life, she felt ready to face whatever came next, no longer afraid of her own potential. The world had underestimated her before, but now she was ready to show them who she really was. And with that, the bus rolled forward into the night, carrying her toward a new beginning.